Welcome. I want to thank all of you for attending the first live session of 2023 Make It Your Lettering Year. Now, after a tumultuous year for me, I thought this course was waning, but what I learned from many of you is that you value this course, some because you like the monthly sessions, because it keeps you creating, and others who can't make the sessions, they're watching the recordings. So I appreciate the feedback that you've given me, and a special thank you goes out to Veronique for her idea of a new structure for the live sessions, which has completely invigorated me. So I'm excited to kick off the year by sharing one of my favorite book forms and how I use it. So let's dive into what we've been doing so far earlier this year. And I know we have some guests today. I'm actually your book host, and I'll be showing you how to create the book, but we have some other guests that have ventured with us today, and we're going to talk a little bit about Make It Your Lettering Year. So every week we have a prompt, and the very first prompt, we covered ways to look at our natural handwriting. And I want you to just notice, maybe even slow down and focus on your form if you want to improve, and use this first prompt as a baseline for the year. But some of you have come here for lettering, and I like to say that there are different strokes for different folks, which means, all of us are working with different mark making tools and in different ways. So first, let's take a quick poll of who's in the room. So I do have a poll here, and I'd love to ask you, what do you consider yourself? Do you consider yourself a calligrapher, a lettering artist, an artist, a graphic recorder, a visual facilitator, a sketchnoter, a visual thinker, or something else? And if you're something else, or for some reason you don't see the poll, go ahead and type in the chat, what do you consider yourself? And I'll also put, I'll put these in the chat in case you need to see them there. That might be helpful. Almost all of you have responded. So I'll give you just a few more seconds. All right, I'll just do a countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Karen, I love it. You're a beginner, so you're still trying to decide. So here are the results. And this is what I figured. I figured that we've got calligraphers and lettering artists and artists. So what's the difference? I know that when I first started out learning calligraphy, I didn't want to call myself a calligrapher. I thought that was a little audacious. So I would just say I'm a lettering artist. And sometimes we're afraid to call ourselves artists. We also have some visual practitioners in the room. A visual practitioner can be, for those of you who don't know, a graphic recorder, someone who listens and writes on the wall for everyone to see, a visual facilitator, someone helps facilitating a meeting using visuals. Sometimes they work in collaboration with a graphic recorder. A sketchnoter is someone who's working smaller, probably in a sketchbook, and likely for themselves, though they can sketchnote for other folks as well. And I'm guessing that those folks that said that they were any type of visual practitioner also said they were a visual thinker, and probably some of the artists, lettering artists and calligraphers did too. So yeah, great to see that that we've got a whole range of people here. And what's wonderful is in the coming months, as we get into more of our community sessions and our portfolio sessions, which we'll have just after every quarter. Well, let's break it down like this. Every quarter, we're going to have a book artist, and then we'll have a community session and then a portfolio session. And so you'll get a chance to meet one another. So that will be super fun. All right. So whether you're using a steel or brass nib pen, a marker, or a carrot, literally, nearly every kind of writing tool is broken down into 3 categories: a monoline, a broad edge, or a brush. And so let me know if you have a tool that you need help categorizing. So why is this important? And feel free to put that in the chat if you're like, wait a minute, what about this particular tool? What would that be? So again, monoline, broad edge, or brush. And I will put that in the chat in case you need to remember that as you're thinking of all the different tools. But the reason why I think this is important is because if you look at a lettering style, and you wonder how it's made, the first thing you'll likely notice is the type of tool that it was used to make it. And then from there, you can determine pen scale. So, how big was the tool, how tall are the letters, so you can break it down, figure out how it's made. You might even look at the angle. So no matter if you are a calligrapher, visual practitioner, or something else, we can all write the same lettering styles using the mark making tools in our studios and kits. So I just want to let you know that you're all welcome here. Now, we've also been improving our handwriting and cursive forms. We dove a bit into the italic form, and I wanted to slow down and look at forms so that you can inform your handwriting and prep you for some of the other upcoming lettering styles. Now, some of you know Roman hand because you're calligraphers. Some of you have watched my Unlock Your Neuland markers and watched my Neuland hand there. That lettering style and italic are both excellent ways to have a foundation to build on and to make variations from. So that was our third week. And then because we are in year 3, we've had 2 previous live sessions. And last year we focused on planning out your learning journey. Now this looks like a whole bunch of scribbles, I'm sure. But what it is a template that I walked everyone through to be thinking about the lettering styles the projects that you want to create, and what inspires you to make letters. So this is a great one for starting out the year or anytime you want to take inventory of your strengths and where you want to grow. And for those of you who are in the Make It Your Lettering Year course, you have lifetime access to this. So you can go back to it at any time. It's always relevant. And if you find you want more coaching like this that I've provided in this session, please let me know. I can incorporate it into an upcoming community or portfolio call. So any questions about the sessions the prompts that you've done so far this year? It's okay if you haven't done them all. I know weeks come very fast, but anything you'd like to say, anything you learned or gained from that? I know some of you have been writing for a long time, and maybe you don't need to improve your handwriting, but I always meet someone. Every week I meet someone who wants to improve their handwriting. Okay. So what's so great about Neuland markers? You're going to hear me talk a lot about them. For those of you that are visual practitioners, you already know this, but for calligraphers that might be wondering, well, do I want to try it? Well, a couple of things is that they have an ergonomic grip. That's these 2 little places here to put your fingers. It's usually works for just about any grip that you have. And then it's also very helpful for indexing, especially if you're using a broad edge marker. Now they're environmentally friendly, so they are refillable. You can put ink in them, and the nibs are replaceable. And some of you might recognize this. It's the Big One art marker. It's the largest art marker in the world that's not bristle brush. It's a nylon nib. So these are environmentally friendly, right? So they don't have to go into the landfill, and they don't bleed, smell, or roll off the table because they have this little kickstand here. Now, they are water-based, some of them are, but you can also get Neuland markers in acrylic, metallic, and chalk markers. And if you'd like to try them out, I'll go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. If you'd like to try it out, you can email me or private message me here in the chat your mailing address. Where can I physically mail you some? And let me know if there's any specific colors or marker types that you want to try. I can also offer you a 15% discount on one order if it's something you want to check out. So that's just my little commercial for those of you who want to learn about Neuland markers. And so just a couple of tips to make the most out of your lettering year. Many of you are attending the live sessions. That's great. Thank you for being here today. Watch the videos when you can't. Create a space to work. Now, many of you have studios. That's so fortunate of you, but some of us have to clear out a space and then also make time to practice and make our projects. I wanted to do a couple of announcements, and then we'll dive right into making our accordion book. All right, so the first is that next Monday, I'm going to be teaching a class called Letter Like a Graphic Novelist. And I'm going to put this into the chat here. And I had a question. If you have a question for me, please feel free to put it to everyone, Lisa, because I won't be able to respond by typing in the chat. But if you're asking about the markers, I usually get them in the mail in about a week. And so however long it takes for the mail to go out from there. So yeah. So Letter Like a Graphic Novelist is a lettering style that is based on architect. So you could bring any broad edge marker, whether it's like a number 1 Neuland, or if you have, say, a calligraphy marker. I just picked these up from the store, the art store, so that I could show how to use it if people are using calligraphy markers. I'm not a huge fan of calligraphy markers because it's not something I'm used to using. I think it's because the points are so sharp, and then if they dull quickly, they just don't act the same. So I try to stick with just my Neuland markers for that. But what I'm going to be teaching is how to take architect and make it look like what a graphic novelist or cartoon lettering artist would make, in just a flip of the nib, and some tips around that as well. So this was a very popular meetup. I think we announced it, and in 24 hours it filled up, and so they've extended it. And so hope you can make it. Just know that it's a very big group, but it's also put on by visual practitioners, so they're really good at running their meetings. I think right now we've got about 100 or 280 people signed up, so it's going to be a big group. So make sure you grab your marker and join us on Monday. And then if you love pangrams,
A, B, C,
just love
D,
this.
E, F, G, F,
I'm going to slow, oh, there we
A,
go.
B,
I was just going to turn the sound off. For those of you who love pangrams, I'd love for you to join me in For the Love of Pangrams. And if you were here a few years ago, we had For the Love of Lettering with Carol Dubosh, Mike Gold, and Sharon Zoigan. Well, now they've come back and decided that they are going, well, I decided and asked them, I'd love to have a pangram contest. And so I've put the link in the chat, and I realized I did not put the HTTP in front of it, so you're not going to be able to click it from here. But we're asking you to create your own pangrams. Is that something you've done? I'd love for you to put in the chat if it's something you've done. I think it would be super fun. Let's see if this will go. There we go. For the love of pangram. So composing your own pangram. That doesn't mean using a random pangram generator or finding someone else's. And you don't have to letter it. You just have to write it out. So, oh, cool. I'm glad to see you've done this, Barbara. You kind of really have to focus on it. And so I give some tips in that link on how to build a pangram. Just some tips, and I'd love for you to do that. The deadline is February 1st. All right. And then finally, before we jump into the books part, I'd love for you to come and letter with me this summer. If you've ever wanted to go to Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, it's where Georgia O'Keeffe spent out her remaining years. And so this is, I'll be teaching at Literally Letters at Ghost Ranch. It's sponsored by Escribiente, the Calligraphy Guild of New Mexico, and I'm teaching sign writing. And so we're going to learn all kinds of different lettering styles, techniques, with the basis of either working on chalkboards or on black paper, acrylic, some kind of a black substrate. We will have other colors as well, but it's really, think Trader Joe's signs, that type of thing. Yep. So I'd love for you to join me there. Now, I'm so excited to have 4 books that we're going to be making this year in Make It Your Lettering Year. And our first book is going to be, well, I'm going to be doing the accordion book. And then in April, Carol Dubosh is going to be joining us, and she's going to be showing us how to create the diamond fold meander book. And so I hope you can do that. When is Ghost Ranch? So that's the first week of June, June 4th through the 11th. Yep. And I'll add that those links in the follow-up email as well. And also want to remind you that Carol's teaching a Ben Shahn lettering class at the end of February. If you haven't already learned that from her, Ben Shahn's a wonderful lettering style, but she also teaches you how to mix colors and inks. So that's super fun. And then Anita Bigelow is going to be showing us how to create the diagonal pocket folder, which I've created one before. It's a lot of folding involved for a little bitty small thing, but then she taught me how to size it up, how to make it bigger, how to scale that up. And that's what I'm so excited about these books that we're going to be making this year, is that we're going to be making some small dummies to start. Dummies are just example book forms. We're going to make some small ones to start, and then you can take it and go really big. And so if you want to think about the size of this particular piece, this blue side over here, that's a like a folder, like a filing folder. So that's its actual size. You can go in and put 8.5 by 11 or A4 size in that. And so imagine it's a pretty big folder. But some of you may have made this before. It's a little bit smaller. And then finally, I'm excited to announce that Helen Hebert's going to be showing us how to create a woven cover book. And if you just can't wait until October, because it is later on in the year, to weave with her, she's offering a weave through the winter class. And so this is where she's going to be covering lots of different weaving techniques. And you might want to check that out too if you haven't already learned from Helen. So let's kick off the year by making an accordion book with pockets. And I have to tell you that whenever I open up a book about making books, I get really excited and then I get extremely overwhelmed. So I thought it might be good to start out with a simple book, but who doesn't love pockets? And I wanted to do this pocket book because I had an actual use for it. I'm pretty practical and pragmatic in that way, that I'm not going to make something unless I know that it can be used for something else or I'm mashing up a couple of ideas. So let's talk about what you want to be able to have today. And actually, I'm going to change to my other camera so that you can see, because I think that's going to be more helpful to you here. All right. So you're definitely going to want to have some 11 by 17 paper or A3. We're going to make 2 books today, so have at least 2 of those sheets. We are going to cut or rip one down, but that's the size we're working on. And believe it or not, this size for the second book we're going to make is going to make a pretty small book. But remember, these are just dummies. These are example books that you're going to be able to scale up later, and I'm going to talk about how to scale those up. You're also going to want a bone folder. Now, you just need one bone folder. You certainly could use the back of your thumbnail, so it's okay if you don't have one, but I want to talk about bone folders for just a moment. Now, there's 2 different bone folders here. We've got an actual bone, and this one's pretty straight, but I've seen bone folders that are curved this way, are curved this way. I even have a small one that's shaped like a leaf, and it's made out of actual animal bone. But then there's another one. This one is a Teflon, so it's not made out of bone, it's made out of Teflon. And the advantage of this one is great for vegans, but also that Teflon is really great to use on cold press or dark papers. Now, if anyone has anything else to share about bone folders, please interrupt me or put in the chat. But a Teflon folder won't mar your paper and won't leave a glossy finish. So I have found that if I'm using my regular natural bone folder on a black piece of cold press paper, it'll almost leave a shiny streak. And so Teflons are really great. Teflon bone folders are really great for that. You'll want a ruler, but it's optional. I don't like to measure a lot of things. If I can get away with it, I'll do just my folding without measuring. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that today, but you might want a ruler. A pencil, again, is optional because you may not need it if you're not going to use a ruler. You may want a pair of scissors or some kind of cutting tool and healing mat if you're going to use the cutting, but you may want scissors just to clip some things out. And when we go to make our inserts, you may want a rounding corner tool. And there are several out there on the market. This is one that I learned from Sally Penley. It's the Cato Maru Pro, and it does small, medium, and large corners. So it's got 3 different corner sizes. Yeah, great. Yes, even Allison is saying that she loves her Teflon bone folder. So let's go ahead and get started. Any questions before we get started about any of these materials? All right. So with this accordion book, what we're going to do is put some pockets in it. So it's not just a simple accordion book, but we will start with a simple accordion fold. And a couple of tips about accordion is that you don't want to just fold them back and forth like you would. I know we used to do them as kids in a fan, but I want to show you a trick that I learned from my first teacher, Hermione Miller, on folding for your accordion book, and you're going to fold it in half. And so I'm using an 11 by 17. I'm going to go back and use my bone folder to make a nice crease. And then I'm going to open one side and fold to the center. So I'm always using the other center fold as my guide. And that's going to ensure that all of my panels are going to be the same. I'm going to flip it here. Do it again, because if I started on one side and went the other way, I would have to probably measure it out. And I love doing this without having to measure. Oh yeah, so she's using stumpy plectrums, like something to pluck a guitar with. Yes, those are great. All right, so once you get 4, we actually want to get to 8 folds. And so now we're going to go back and we might have to turn. Now, let me just show you this. We've got valley folds and mountain folds. So this is your valley. And if this is a mountain, this is your peak. So we're going to go back and we might have to change our peaks to valleys, but we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and fold this. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to fold it again this way to the inside. Which is going to cause me to create a peak here, which I can fold to. And again, this is a dummy. So if you make a mistake here, that's okay. You're learning technique. It's not about the final product. You may never use this to put anything in, but you might like this size. It's a great size for pocket size. All right. And so now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 valleys, 3 peaks, and 2 ends. Okay. All right. And so you're going to pull it out just a little bit. And then what I'd like you to do is with these ends on the upside, you're going to fold these in, the corners in, sort of like a paper plane kind of thing. And you're going to do it on each side, each corner, folding in. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to just rotate it. You can do it whatever feels comfortable to you. All right. You should have all 4 folded in. Let me know if I need to slow down or if you have any questions. Now we need to find the center of our piece. And you can use a ruler if you want. I like to just freestyle this a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to not fold it, but I'm going to crease the middle. So I'm going to put these 2 folds together at the top, the 2 corners, and I'm just going to put my finger down and make a small crease. That's going to show me where the middle is. And this is going to get covered up a little bit later, so it's okay that that crease is there. You're not even going to see it. Then, if you are using a ruler, you may want to you might want to make a mark 1/4 inch up and 1/4 inch down. And that's where we're going to fold to. So if I'm going to go 1/4 inch up and I'm just going to eyeball this 1/4 inch or say 3/4 of a centimeter, maybe even a centimeter if you want is fine. This is not exact. This can totally shift, but I'm going to just overlap that center part there, making sure that my lines line up here. That'll ensure that this is going to be a straight fold, and I see that as I go along here. And then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going over that center line, or I can go right over the fold that I just made. This is so easy, it's going to make your head spin. Okay, so what you should have here, and if again, now you might have to turn your valleys into peaks and your peaks into valleys, but if you bring your sides in like this and then fold each one opposite, we're making an accordion here. And then go through and your bone folder can straighten and tighten all of these folds up. And so now you have a very simple accordion book with pockets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are going vertically. And on the sides, you have pockets this way that you can utilize too. Right? All right, hopefully you did that. That would be great. Now you can take a piece of cardstock, or I'm just going to grab a piece of, this is just a piece of craft paper from like a paper bag. So this year I've been really focusing on sustainable products and reusing a lot of things. And so what I'm going to do here is, again, I could take a ruler and measure if I wanted to how wide I want to go here. And I'd want to bring my inserts in a little bit. So for mine, with an 11 by 17 inch, it's going to be different for A4. I'm going to go 1 3/4 inches. For an A4, chances are you're going to be around 4 centimeters. But you can also just eyeball it and tear it using your marker, or your ruler. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to eyeball it and tear it. But again, you can measure it and put it on a healing mat. And all we're making here are some inserts. And if you've made it, if it will fit in this one, it can also fit in the front and the back. And what could be fun to put in the front and the back, maybe a colophon. A colophon is a description of what the book is made of and something about your process, that type of thing. You might talk about what it is. Oh, that's perfect sizing there. Then you can use your first one as a guide to cut or rip your other ones. Notice I'm using a cork-backed map, but I have it flipped upside down, because if I went this way, there'd be a little bit of there'd be like a little fold and then a tear. So sometimes I flip this around so the cork is on the top. So let's make a few more of those inserts. And what's great about this is you don't have to have just one insert per pocket. You can have several inserts. So this book works really well as a traveling notebook. You can add things to it. And all of the books that we're doing this year are scalable and customizable. All right, any questions so far? I just love using reused products before I have to recycle them, so that they're not just one use. Utilizing the folds that are already there to tear. I don't know about you, but there's something so satisfying about tearing paper. Who's with me? I also find it's fast to tear paper. Usually don't get hurt. I've never gotten a paper cut from a torn piece of paper, but I have gotten a paper cut from cut paper and have cut myself with a blade. So I like to use a different type of paper for the insert so you can really see it. So I would recommend a different color, maybe something thicker like cardstock, or like I've done here with craft paper. Yeah, you like tearing paper too? Oh, I just love it. Sometimes I do projects just because I want to tear some paper. Now, again, this is a really small book. So be thinking about if you could make this larger, what would you put in it? And then would that help you determine the size? And after we make our second book here, then I will show you, actually, I'll show you the other book that I made that's similar to this. So now that you've got enough of these, something else you can do is you can take a hole punch and punch the top there if you'd like. I like to put them all in, and then sometimes I'll make one of them sort of a dummy, meaning I might take my pencil once I get it in there the way that I like it, and I might say, okay, here's the live area. Here's the area that people are going to see first, and try to write in that area in such a way that it's interesting, but also makes them want to pull it out and look at it. The first time I saw a book that was sort of like this, because it's so fast and easy to make, right? I think it's taken us less than 10 minutes. I was in a calligraphy class, and sometimes when we're in a calligraphy class, the students will get together and make a thank you note for the teacher. And so someone made the book and then gave everybody in the class an insert, and then we all got to write our own thank you note. And then this ended up going to the teacher. So there's my book with all of the inserts in it. And so how do we keep it together? Well, let's make a little slip case or slip tab for it. So I'm going to grab another piece of paper, and you want it to be long enough that it goes all the way around. Let's see if this will fit. This is kind of thin, sometimes, or narrow. You can go, really wide. You can almost cover the whole thing, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just make it fit this. So I get a general idea of how big I want it to be. Maybe it's kind of loose right now, or maybe it's too tight because I've been pushing it down. And so what I might do is, while I have it down, I'm going to go over a little bit because I've got a little extra paper there. Go about 3/4 of the way, cover it over. And then I'm going to take my scoring tool, and I'm just going to score using the tip of it there and on this side, so I know how wide my book is. And then I'll use that score to do that back fold. And, maybe some of you have a better idea of how to make one of these, but this is how I've come to make them. Sometimes my slip covers are a little too narrow and I have to make them again. If they're too small, then they're hard to get on. And then if they're too loose, then it doesn't really hold my book shut. But you can hold your book shut and then measure it. But I find that that's a good place to start, but you don't want it so tight that you won't be able to get it over these in folds. So I'm going to go just a little looser. For mine, I'm going to go 1/4 inch. And again, I can either measure that or I can eyeball it. And just want to make a little mark there. I might even go back and use my ruler to make the score, but you don't have to. I mean, you could fold all of this by hand, or you could simply just bend it over the side and then glue it. But I am going to go ahead and do this other side, since I've already done this one so nicely. Another way is let me show you how to do this. So if I go 1/4 inch over, I can score this side, but then I can also come under with my bone folder and do it this way as well. So I scored that. And what scoring does is it just compresses all of those paper fibers, and you can come back over. One of the things that we didn't talk about was the grain of our paper, which can make a big difference if you're using a thick paper, but I am using a text weight. Yeah, I love it. Katha in the chat said that she likes to make these kinds of books, travel books, right, out of maps. When you travel, you often get maps of the city for free and then use white or brown paper for the inserts. Oh, that's great. I love it. I love making books out of maps. Okay, so that my tab is a little bit long, so I might just fold it over just to get an idea of how long I want that to be. And I can tear it or I can cut it with a pair of scissors. Now, what I didn't write on here was to bring glue. So if you have glue nearby, that's great, or tape. I apologize. I'll add this to the page. I'm going to use this. It's just a double stick tape adhesive. So I'm going to stick some on this side on the corner, on the end, and then I'm going to do the same over here. I love double stick tape because it's so fast. It's immediate. And then again, be a little loose on it. I'm noticing as I put this down, yep, it feels better going over the bottoms. I might have to go back with my bone folder and just flatten this. And what I'll do today after I'm done here is I'll put this under a stack of books and let it sit overnight so that it really gets flat. And this is a bit of a narrow slip case or slip cover. You know, it only holds a little bit there. You can make them much thicker. I like to make them a little bit big. And then once I've written on my actual piece, I might make this a little bit smaller. I might cut it or tear it down. So let me show you the piece that I made, and I'll also talk about how to scale this up and more about decoration. So I talked a little bit about using materials that are sustainable, also using materials that I already had. And so some of you that are visual practitioners might recognize black flip chart paper and Neuland's brown paper. I love this paper because it has these watermarked lines in it that are great for practicing lettering. And so I made a nice big slip cover. Mine was a little bit bigger, but I wanted to be able to see these letters down here. I didn't want it to be covered up if this were in the center. And so I used, and I'll give you the size here. I know that I've got a colophon somewhere. Or I thought I did. Okay, so this was the width of a, I believe a flip chart mini, but I will get the measurements and email that, put that in the follow-up email. But this is a really large piece of paper. And then these are the pennant cards that are like construction paper. And what I've done here, the reason why I created this is because I really wanted to make a book that will allow me to show what materials that I want to test on. So I've got some of Neuland's brown paper, the pennants in gray, brown, and white, and I'm showing what some of the mark making tools that I use, what they might look like on this paper. So what does white charcoal look like? What is soft white pencil? And then what do some of the other metallic tools look like on different types of paper? Here I've got Derwent's metallic pencils, which are gorgeous on black as well. Different uniballs. They come in white, black, gold, silver, and just some different brushes. Here we go. Here's my colophon. So this particular pocket, this particular accordion with pockets, I use the black mini paper from Neuland. So the original size is 24.5 by 17.5 inches, or for Europeans, 61.5 by 44.5 centimeters. So you can imagine how big this piece of paper is. If you're a calligrapher and you like working on Arches text wove, you could do a half or a quarter sheet. And I think it's the quarter sheet would make this size of a book. And this finished size, I don't have it, but I'll tell you what that is. I'll measure it right now. So this finished size is 8.5 by 3, so still not a large book. Or in centimeters, 22 and 8 centimeters. And so again, I can utilize these pockets that are in here, or because I want this to sort of have its own self cover, and this is a big enough book that I think it can take a lot more of these inserts, I'm going to go ahead and take my tool here, oops, my adhesive tool, and I'm just going to go all the way around this front and back cover. And I'm going to make this a self cover by sticking it to itself and doubling up. And I waited to do this because I wanted you to be able to see that what I did after I was all finished is I wrote on the front and I wrote on the back. And you can see it's even kind of gone over to this area. But I'm going to glue this part shut. So this is a great way to make a little bit more of a heftier cover for your book. Yeah, I can repeat the sizes. So again, remember, I don't necessarily like to measure things. So I was using what I had. So I was using that. It's called Neuland. They've got a flip chart paper, but they have a mini flip chart paper. So it's a smaller flip chart size. So this is my book. That's it. Right. And so the sizes, you want to take a screenshot, you can as well. 24.5 inches, 17.5 inches, or 61.5 centimeters and 44.5 centimeters. So quite a large piece of paper to make this size of a book, because so much of the paper is being taken up by this double pocket. You know, it's doubled here and it's doubled here, which actually gives it some nice structure. And then of course I'm losing even more by giving it its own self cover by taping these ends together. But it's a nice book. I mean, it's not super heavy, but it's sturdy enough that I could take it traveling with me. I think it's going to go fine with me between home and my studio. Now, I did make the slipcover a little big. I thought about redoing it, but then I think I'm just going to fill it with enough things in here that it's going to grow a little bit in size. So yeah, what other questions do you have? And I wrote on it with acrylic markers. All right. Do I think it would work well with gift paper? Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible. Because again, this paper that I'm using is really, really thin. I bet it's text weight, just like what you would pull out of your printer. It's fairly thin. And so again, it's doubled up at the bottom, it's doubled up at the top, and then on the sides, because I taped it, it's got a thicker cover. So yeah, I think gift wrap paper is great. And because gift wrap paper is so big, I think you've got something to work with there. Visual practitioners, we're used to working with large pieces of paper, a meter tall or 3 feet tall. Yeah. All right. Are we ready to move on to the next one? The next book, it's an accordion book, but it has an integrated cover. Any questions so far? You good?
Not sure if you saw it,
Oh.
Heather. I just put one question in. I was wondering, does that lose the triangular pocket when you
Yes.
tape the? Okay, I
Yes.
thought so, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, when I taped that, I lost the triangle pocket and I lost one of these pockets. And so,
Right.
but so you think, well, why would you want to do that? Well, for me, this was so thin out here that I wasn't going to put anything in it, that I was fine with it being that big.
Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you lost 2 pockets inside, but I wasn't certain on the triangle since it was
Yeah.
black. So thank you.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to see, and I'll show you in the next book some adjustments that I made as well. Good.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, we want to make sure ask plenty of questions, because you can come back and watch this video again and again. So this is the 11 by 17 size, or A3 size, and then this is the larger size. And so look at that, it's almost double the size of a book. Yes, the paper should be landscape. I mean, you could do it vertical. If you did it vertical, you would have a very long, skinny book, right? So yeah, so that's why we make these dummies. And what I would suggest to you is either on the slipcover or in one of these pieces of paper or another piece of paper, write down what size this book is. So write down the size of paper you started with. And it doesn't have to be 11 by 17. It could literally, or even a proportion of it. I mean, if you want this exact proportion, go ahead and double the size. Or if you just have a really big piece of paper, you can do this to any size piece of paper and not worry about measurements, and it's going to come out no matter what. But I like to keep notes about what size this is. I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, I'm thinking about using it as a paper dispenser kind of tool. Like I would shrink it in height and elongate it so that origami paper fits in, and then I
Right.
display paper from it.
Yes. So what size do you plan on going in?
Well, I will use the nylon brown paper since I have these big
Yes.
rolls, and I will
Yes.
wear it from the inside so that standard origami paper with a scale of 15 by 15 will fit in one.
Wonderful. That's great. Yeah. That's wonderful. And if anybody wants to share what they ended up creating, we'll put that in the Padlet, and I'll put that in the course page and also in the follow-up email so that we can see what our books look like. We'll create a whole new Padlet just for books. How's that? Because I think it's great to be able to show people sizes. And if you do take a picture either with a ruler or something that shows the scale. Yeah, good. Because really, it's about scaling it up and using it for a purpose, I think, is the key piece. But what a simple thing. We've done it very quickly. But I do want to show you this book. And again, this one has a big, long case. And I like this slip case because as soon as I let go of it, it kind of opens up a little bit, right? And this one has an integrated cover, which means it has a spine to it. The other one, we saw the open folds, but this one is going to have a spine to it. And when you open it up, again, the same kind of thing. We're putting pockets in it. So we have the same kind of vertical pockets. We have the horizontal pockets. And on these, what I did was I rounded the corners with my corner rounder, and then I punched a hole in the top, which I don't know why. It's not like I'm going to put a tab there, but you certainly could. You could put something at the top, a ribbon or something, and they could all be off the top. And then created this. Now you have to put this into your planning. And so we are going to take our 11 by 17 paper, or if you're using A3, that's fine, but we're going to cut it down. So we're going to keep the width and the height. We're going to cut to either 7 inches if you're working in inches, or 18 centimeters. So again, let's go ahead. This time I am going to use my ruler. So we're going from 11 to 7. And I'm just going to measure it on each side. I'm going to do it again because I don't think I measured it correctly over here. Yep. Okay. Now I have an 18-inch ruler. If you have a yardstick or something big, that's fine. If you don't, if you have a 12-inch ruler or a ruler that's smaller than your paper, then you can make a mark in the middle here, because I'm just going to line up my paper, my ruler to my paper, and then rip it. Okay. So what you can do is if you only have half, you can do half and then pull your ruler down and do the other half. So again, I'm using my cork side up so that it tears right against the paper. You want to put your finger right where you're going to tear, especially at the beginning. Carefully move your hand down so that you don't move your ruler. So again, if you're measuring, I'm using a 7 by 17 inch, or in centimeters, approximately 18 by 42. And we're not going to fold it in the same way. First, we need to prep it because we need to be thinking about our integrated cover. And so again, we're going to use our ruler and we're going to measure a little bit on the left and a little bit on the side because we're going to fold those in. And on the left, it's about 1.25 inches or about 2.5 centimeters. Now, this isn't exact, and that's because it depends on what your length was, right? This is going to be the tab that folds over, makes our spine and folds into itself. So that's 1.5, or I'm sorry, 1.25. I'll just write that right here. Or 2.5 centimeter. And then on the right, you're going to go 3/4 inch or 1.5 centimeter. So it's shorter on the right than it is on the left. You're going to fold those in. So again, what I would do is I would line up my ruler and then I would take my bone folder underneath and just make that fold. Get it started. Oftentimes I use the side of my bone folder to make a fold or the end like this. I'm just rotating. I'm not flipping. When I flip, that means I flip the paper over. I'm rotating it to get that other side, and then I'll rotate it back.
Could you give the number of the
Inches again. On the left, it's 1 1/4. And on the right, it's 3/4.
Thank
You're welcome. 1 1/4 or 3/4. So your longer tab is going to be on the left and your shorter tab is going to be on the right. Yes. Okay. And now, just like we did the other one, we're going to pretend we're going to do our folding just like we did the other one, but we're going to keep these tabs folded in the whole time. So they're going to stay folded in there. We're going to go ahead and fold this. Oops. Horizontally this way. It appears I got a little bit of that adhesive on my paper. Oh, shame on me for using a black eraser. I have an adhesive eraser, but it's not here in this at my desk. I can go back and clean that up. Okay. So again, we're folding towards those two tabs. They're coming in together like this. And now we can fold our remaining as an accordion like we did before. Just pretend like that little tab's not there. So always folding towards our other folds, because that'll make sure that our accordion panels are equal, right? So we had this tabbed part, we went inside. So now this is going to have to turn into from a valley fold to a mountain fold, right? We're going to keep folding. I remember the first time I learned accordion folds, I thought, oh, this is so simple, boring, go on to the next book. And now, after making lots of different complicated books, I'm actually in love with accordion folds. They're just so simple. It's like I can appreciate the simplicity of that. I'm actually going to take this one going the other way first. And I've been fortunate to have several book artists in my life that I get to enjoy their books, but I've been afraid to make a lot of my own books. How many of you feel that way? Like, oh, I don't know. Either I'm afraid or I just don't think I can do it, or it'll take a long time. But these are surprisingly short books to make. And then once you decide you have a use for them and you want to go up, that's where the math begins. All right, so now you should have, again, let me close this up a bit. You should have 1, 2, 3, 4 peaks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 valleys with your long tab on the left and your short tab on the right. Okay. And now, similar to what we did before, just got something right there. Not sure what that is. Okay. Now we're going to open this up a little bit like this, not all the way. These tabs are folded under. And now we're going to fold in. not the actual tab part, it's going to stick up, but the rest of it's going to fold in. So remember, we did this last time. We just have that little tab where that little extra tab in there. That extra little tab is going to be what's going to help us make that spine. So again, we're folding all the corners in. It's a folded corner. So this is a mountain or a peak that we're folding in on all 4 sides. Okay. And go back to rotate it again so that you've got your long tab on the left. Okay. Now, I want you to open these up, the ones that we just folded. And now I want you to put them inward like this. You see what I did there? So hold on a second. I think I skipped a bit. Sorry. Okay. We've got these folded in like this. Yep. All right. My apologies. Now what we want to do is we want to fold this inside. Sorry. Take this whole thing. You can unfold it if you want, but you want to take this whole thing and fold it in like this. It's going to be at this juncture here where these folds were. That's where you're going to fold it this way.
Heather, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So I got a little confused on the triangle fold
Uh-huh.
corners. Is the flap that we folded, is it supposed to stay when we make that triangular fold?
This little thing?
Yeah,
Yes, it stays behind. It's okay if it got bent. It's okay. But yes, it stays behind. It stays flat when we fold these in.
okay, so when we fold the triangle in, I'm confused. It looks like it's double.
Yes, that's a mountain.
Okay.
Let me
I
start
think
over. That's
what
okay.
I've done wrong.
Yeah, so when we went to go fold these in, let me just crunch this up a little bit so you can see. So yes, you're taking each one of these peaks and bringing it together and then folding that in.
Okay, so we have a valley behind, is that correct? Where that
Yes.
little, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that's where I got lost.
Yep.
Okay.
Right
you.
there. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to go as slow as I can so we can.
Yeah, you've been doing
Yeah.
great. It just was that part that lost me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you get all 4 of these folded in. You can fold this way. And now you can go rotate it again and fold this way. We're folding in the tops and the bottoms according to where this fold is. If anybody needs me to slow down, let me know. Okay. Then you can fold these out, flatten this out. And here is where we're going to take these corner folds that we did before, and we're going to fold them in. Okay. This is going to it's going to feel weird the first time because you're going, okay, I'm opening it up. I'm turning that peak into a valley, and it's going at a diagonal now because we made those nice folds. I'm going to rotate it. Open it up. Turn that peak into a valley. So we've got a diagonal. We've got our little tab back there. Diagonal again on the inside. I always think that when it gets to this point, it looks kind of like a frog. Looks like it's about to hop or something. It's got some spring to it. So do you all see that? Does anybody not have that? What's that?
I was thinking the same thing, that it's a frog.
Yeah, it does. It looks like a frog, doesn't it? Good. Good. Okay. So now I want you to, let me make sure I'm looking at my notes correctly. All right. So now that we've got these folded, let's pull this all the way back out. All right. Now that we have these all folded, our peaks and our valleys should be like this. This can come back in. Now we want to go ahead and pull our top down. So notice what happens is we still have this little corner fold in our tab back there. We want to pull this top down and pull this up, because this is going to be our pocket. Okay. So does everybody have that? The top's down, the bottom is up, because we are going to flip this whole thing over. And when we flip it over, we're going to take these tabs and we're going to go one side at a time. We're going to pull this whole thing up, and our tabs should be straight up now. They're not folded anymore. So I'm going to pull this tab. I'm going to hold this down carefully. Don't rip it. You're going to go against some of these other folds now. This is almost going to look like a box. It's missing parts of its sides. Okay. Does everybody have that happening? You're thinking, how are we going to get here from there? All right. Got your boxes up. I just want to make sure there we go. So you've got your boxes up. Now you're going to fold inwards. And this is like wrapping a gift. Now we're taking those diagonals and we're folding those inwards. And one is going to fold on top of itself and it's going to go flat. But you got to have that little tab there. Oops. So we folded it inwards, so those diagonals came in. One's going to lay on top of the other, and it'll just fold flat, straight up here, straight down here. This is a great time to get your bone folder out and get that straight down. This is why text weight is so important, because we've got so many folds in there. If we did this with a cardstock, it would be way too thick. All right, now you can turn it upwards. And it should look like this. It's all kind of connected in here. But what we're going to do is, remember these little tabs we had? So we've got a long and a short. So let's have your long on your left side. And what I'd like you to do, this is your wider extension. This is actually going to be your, spine. So take about 1/4 of an inch or 7 millimeters, and you're going to make another fold. This is your spine fold. So I've just kind of marked it with my bone folder, and then I'm going to bring it back and really score it. Fold it. Okay, so this is going to be the spine. And I just folded it that way so you could see that it's the spine. We can lift this back up. And what we're going to do is, now that we have this fold, and this doesn't have to be exact, so this we can totally eyeball, but I'm going to put my finger and my thumb here just to hold that closed, and I'm going to bend this fold backwards, and we're just going to make this tapered. The reason why is it's going to insert into another place, sort of like an envelope, but each corner, just going to grab that and fold it inside of itself just to make it tapered in. We want it to come in like this. That we're not even going to see this, so that doesn't have to be measured or anything. We're going to do that to both sides. Even the narrow tab here. Hold it like this. Flatten it out a little bit with your hand, with your fingers. And then I'm using my fingernail right on that fold to taper it in. Boy, when I did this one, I thought, wow, I'm really doing something here. Because I felt like I was, I wasn't using my ruler. I wasn't following any instructions other than I'm just tapering those in. Okay. So we see that there's a natural fold here happening. Now let's go back and just make sure that we've got our accordion happening. So it's going to go tab, that's straight out, and then in, out, in. And we're just going to go till we get to that other side. So we should have an accordion book with these flaps sticking out. And you can go back and use your bone folder. To fold them. Okay. Is everybody here? Is anybody not here, I should say? You know this is up because we've got our little pockets in there.
I'm not quite there.
Okay.
And I have one question back
Yeah.
to the sizing on the left side
Mm-hmm.
where you put that crease or that new fold.
Uh-huh.
What was the size of that again?
Yep. That is a 1/4 inch or 7 millimeters.
Okay, and are you making it? You're making it on this.
I'm making it on the actual tab. Yeah. So that was longer.
Oh, on the tab. Okay.
Yep. Yep. It's not on this side. It's on this side, on the tab side.
Okay, that makes sense now that I
Yep.
think about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's not easy to think about if you haven't done it before. So that's sort of like, oh,
Right.
when does
Okay.
that happen? Yes. But these little folds that we did on the inside, these are really important. Okay.
Okay, I
Because
got those.
good. And so yours should start from where that spine is. You don't want it to go into the spine. You want it to come out here.
What should start from there?
So that little, when we
Oh,
folded that
I
in-
see what you're saying. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep,
Thank you
yep,
for getting me
that's our
straight.
spine. What I love about this and having a spine is that you can go back in. You can do it now or you can do it later, but you get to write on the spine. How often do we get to make books that we get to write on the spine? All right, any other questions before we go to the final step? We're so close. Now this is going to take a little finagling, but if you've got the long part on the left and the short on the side, it doesn't matter. But the short one, you want to start with the short one, and we're actually going to fold this within itself. So it's going to go inside of the little pocket next to it. And this can take some real finagling. This is the hard one. The other one's going to be easy. This is the hard one to get in there. But once it gets in there, it just slips right in. And you can use your bone folder to press it down. So you took the thin tab and just stuck it inside of itself. And now with all of your folds coming together, now you take your long tab and you put it right inside of that same pocket that you just put your thin tab in. Ta-da! And now you have a accordion book with pockets with an integrated cover. Now, you may want to take it, and I did this with my last one. You might want to pull this out just a little bit and put a little line of glue there and weight it down, or this is why I love this two-sided tape, because I can just put it right on. You don't even have to be very good at it, apparently. Fold that over, get it inside of there, and then press it shut. And there's your integrated cover. It's nice and thick. And notice you did lose the number of pockets that we had before, also got lost here too. So we just have 4 pockets. And then again, we have these side pockets that we can use. And here's where we can put our paper on the side as well. But you can go through and, like we did last time, measure how big you want your inserts to be. And there's your integrated cover. And you can make your your slip cover as well. All right. What questions do you have about this book?
What size does it wind up?
So it ends up only being 1 7/8 inches, which is almost 2 inches, and 3 3/8, or almost 5 centimeters by 8.5 centimeters. So this is small. This is like a little bit smaller than a business card, but this is just your dummy, right? So this is just the thing that we're going to use as our baseline. And then if we want to make it bigger, if you want to make it twice as big, you of course would just double your size. If you start out with 7 by 17, so I'm going to write down 7 inches by 17 inches, and I'm going to slip that in there to remind myself that's what my parent's size was, what the book size was. And then if I decide I want it bigger, then I can work on it proportionally. But know that this little side part took up a lot of space. And we know that folding it this way and this way also takes up a lot of space, but it doesn't open up like the other one did. It's got its own cover. So let me show you what I did. I did this. I also made it much bigger as well. In fact, bigger than the last one. So remember the last one I showed you, the accordion book. This is the one with the integrated cover. Now I'm using the same papers, but I'm opposite. So this is my black flip chart paper. This is the Neuland brown paper. It's like craft paper, but you might notice there's some watermarked lines in here. And I did decorate the outside. I didn't do this yet because I wanted to show you what this looked like before. I didn't do that last step because before I glued it, I put it all out and I wrote on it. So it's just on this front side and on the spine. And then what I'll do is in the same here, I just wrote on it before I folded it in. So I had it flat when I was writing on it. And then I will glue this part. And then on the inside, here's where I have, this is for Make It Your Lettering Year. This is an accordion book with pockets with an integrated cover. The original paper size, this is quite large, 45 and a half inches by 18 and a half inches, or 15 and a half by 47 centimeters. So if you want to take a picture of that, you can. This paper is the Neuland Pennant paper, and I think I just cut it on this end. I think this is the actual width. And then I used my corner rounders just to round the corners. And I really like rounded corner. I mean, I'm not a big rounded corner person. I think I just don't think about it. But in this case, because it's going inside of a pocket, it goes into the pocket so much easier because it's got that rounded corner. And then with this paper, this is the Neuland Metallic. This is Stonehenge watercolor paper, cold press. It's 140 pounds. So this is really thick. And so the reason why I'm doing this is if I'm going to use these materials, I want to see what all my different mark making tools are going to look like on it. So this is Molotow liquid chrome. I've got some copper by Sakura. This Wink by Stella is like a dark gray. It's not showing up very well on screen, but sometimes we would like to see a little black on black or charcoal on black. And these are just some of my tools that I wanted to see what they would look like. This is Pilot. These are colored pencils. If any of you took Sharon Zeugen's Illuminate the Dark class, these are most of the materials that I used from that class. And so these are mechanical pencils that come in different colors. And it looks like there's 8 different colors. Yep. So at one point I did make a book where I did this type of thing, but it was really hard to get the pages to pull out. It was hard for me to pull out the pages. So that's why I switched to this book form. So these are my Derwent metallics. Those are some of the charcoal whites, what that looks like. It just gives me a sense of if I wanted to work on this paper and use this mark making tool, what that might look like. So this is really hard to see, but there's a lot of different black markers and inks on here. And I just wanted to see if they worked. And some of them didn't work very well. And that's good to know. And so some of you might use like glaze pins. Do you see that Secura glaze? You can see it right there, but watch when I shift the angle. You can't see it. So it's a clear glaze pin made by Secura, and it's a jelly roll. And then in the back, I have my colophon, various mark making tools on Stonehenge, watercolor 140, inserts with rounded corners, Neuland brown pinboard paper for folded book form. And I like to take these notes because believe me, I've made books and in the past gone back and found the book and went, how did I make that? What did I make that with? How big is the paper? And to know the size of the paper gives you a jumping off point if you decide, oh yeah, I want to do this book form again, but I want to make it either the same size or bigger or smaller, at least you'll have the dimensions. So this is really my example book for my different tools that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this one now. So any questions about this book form? Like it, love it, won't ever do it again? I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
What size is the finished product?
Ah, excellent question. Who was that? I knew that voice sound familiar. Let's see. Who asked that question? 5 1/8.
Lily.
Hi, Lily. It looks like it's 5 1/8 wide or 13 centimeters and 8 1/4 inches tall or 21 centimeters. So it's a nice size book, right? So it's almost like a half sheet of letter size paper, almost. So it's a nice size. And then once I tape it there and really get a good finish, now my spine is nice and straight. I can go back with maybe a black acrylic marker or a permanent pen and write right on that. And that's going to look really nice. That's going to look really nice on a bookshelf along with other books that I make. Whereas this accordion book, that's okay. I mean, I could certainly write on this spine too. So what questions do you have?
Would you use glue instead of the tape on the spine? I know we talked about glue somewhere else, but I
On
worried
this
that,
yeah. Part or this?
the first part. So
This part, yeah. I'm kind of funny about glue now that I've discovered these, and I have a bigger version of this in my studio. I really love it because it's instant, right? It's not. You can reposition it, though. This is kind of precarious. I think you'd end up denting your paper if you did. So you want to get good at doing this one. But if you put glue here, it will work. But there's not really a way to weight it down and keep it down without putting an impression on there. I kind of pinched it with my finger, and now it's done. But yeah, you could use glue. I would just put it on pretty thin. Maybe with a brush. It'd probably be easy to get a brush down in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? There we go. It always feels loose once it gets on there, but then it's like it needs to be loose enough to actually get over the corners. Yeah. There we go. All right. What questions do you have? Love for you to unmute and let me know if you're going to try this. Oops. Those were our, hold on a second. So here's what we made. This little guy, our little dummy. Are you going to make another one?
Heather, what was the weight of the paper?
The white of the paper?
The weight.
Oh, the weight of the paper. So this is.
Because I used something that was too heavy and it just got all,
Yeah, it's really text weight paper. Just that your 24-pound would be good. You could go up to 28-pound easily. I think from there it gets a little bit heavier. Neuland paper, the flip chart paper, is really thin, but I think that their brown paper is it's it's thicker. It's not quite as thick as craft paper, but you know,
Sure.
there's different grades of craft paper too, right? Like you can get the
Okay.
really thick stuff, or sometimes
Yeah.
it comes really thin. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I just enjoyed watching you, and I do want to try and make that second one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The
But-
second one's, you know, the second one's a little bit of a challenge because you kind of, so watch the video, you kind of have to wrap your
Right,
head
you have
around
to
it.
invert those corners and everything.
Yeah, inverting those corners or, you know, when you're making folds upon itself. This one's so easy. I mean, you can literally just pick up any piece of paper and make this one. But
Mhm.
this one takes a little bit more time, but it is have a much more heft to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like the one with the back since you can write on it.
Hmm.
But I will try to make it wider and to have more pockets with a general accordion book, because I stumbled upon the Inkman calendar and saw your video of it and made like swaps from all the inks, and I'm
Yes.
still looking for something to put it in.
Yes, exactly. So that's a great thing to do. So in order to make more pockets, meaning more pages, you're just going to have to go much longer and just put more folds in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that will come when you make those side tabs, you'll make your first fold, you'll figure out how many pockets you want, and then also account for, does this count as a pocket or do you want to use this for something else? And then make as many folds as you can from that first fold to make those other pockets. So for those of us that are working with rolls of paper, I mean, it could be endless, right? We could make a book this thick if we had a long enough piece of paper, but careful because you may not have that long of a table. So it might be hard to manage a piece of
I
paper
don't know,
that
my,
big.
my studios is fine for that, but there is even we have in Germany we have a certain craft paper. It's colored. It's at
Mhm.
our general like something like the drugstore, and it's really durable, like the craft paper, you know. And since it's covered with the paper color on one and the other side, it's like always at least a 2 to maybe sometimes 10-meter roll. So that's you
Wow.
can even color change with it. And since the book with the back has an interesting color change, it's gonna look very funny.
Yeah. Well, it's going to look fun, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be great to have two colors. Then you're going to see how things fold. Now, I guess I could have marked this, but I'm looking at this and I'm pretty sure that it's all going to be the same color because it's folding into itself.
The outside actually has one color and the inside has the other. It's really cool.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter because I'm looking at all the surfaces that I'm looking at is no, it's not one side. The cover, because remember Neuland Brown has a slick side and a crafts and a smooth side, and it looks like it's smooth. Yep, and then here on the inside, so the outside is one color, and then all of the inside pages will be a different color. So it's almost like the split happens between these two sections,
right.
the inside and the outside. So that's fun. Yeah, your cover will be a different color than the inside. Good. Good. Glad to see when that you'll be doing this again. So on which surface did I work on using the big sheet of paper? So the part that I wrote on the outside, that was the smooth side. I didn't do that on purpose. I just did it, right? I just folded it and that just happened to be the way it is. Neuland suggests to work on the smooth side because it helps save your nibs a little bit because the rough side can be a little bit rougher on the nibs. But I will tell you that when I'm graphic recording, I use the rough side to graphic record on because it doesn't give the reflection when I go to take a picture. See, this has a little bit, you may not be able to see it, but it's got a little bit of a shine to it. And so does the acrylic as well. So yeah, excellent question. Anyone else? Yeah. So yeah, these are just little dummies. So these are just to get you started. So from here, do the math. And I'd love to find out if anyone goes larger. And I will create a Padlet for us to put our books in. You can post your dummy if you want, or if you decorate it in some way, or if you make another one, please post that. And so we can keep our book samples showing. And wonderful. All right. Well, I gave you a little extra time back. Now you can see how simple these are. And yeah,
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
If you have the time, could you just demonstrate one more time how you
Yes.
do the fold for the belts?
You can either just pull up and that will give you a little bit of a kink there, or you can take your bone folder and just start by making a line there. And if that doesn't feel like you've got enough to work against, then you can take your ruler and line it up to where you made that fold. You might even use a square if you want to get it really square, but I would just pull up and then use my bone folder on the back of that to get a nice crease. And so now from here, this is what's interesting is this already has a spine. So this is easy to measure. You know that it's not going to compress much. And when I look at this spine, this is a really big spine, so it's much bigger than yours, but it's well over a 1/2 inch. So it's about 5/8 for me. What I might do is look at this, and sometimes I'll make a mark with my fingernail. Again, I don't use a lot of pencils and things like that because then I have to go back and erase, and sometimes they smudge. You can see there, I've already got a little smudge line. So I just did 5/8 of an inch there. That's going to be a little bit big. It's definitely big on that side because this side is thinner than this side. So I don't think I would still make it the same size because I want to keep adding things to my book. Eventually it'll get more even like this. Or I can decide, well, I'll just flip it around. That works well. And again, I'm holding that up against there, and then marking this. And maybe I don't go the same. Maybe I can make it a little bit more narrow, but then you always have to remember which side that is, right? So it's not going to be one that you're going to flip back and forth. You might want to write on your cover, on that little cover, so you know which side is up. Now this, I know I have to bring it way over here because I didn't give myself much of a tab. I also didn't tear it straight. You can just make a little bit of a kink there and say, okay, that's where I want to put my fold. And you might compare it to the other side. This is quite a difference I'm seeing here. So I'm going to go out a little bit more. Yep. So in hindsight, I would definitely cut my paper straighter because I didn't do that here. Definitely go longer than you need to. So I'll fold that back just a little bit to say, okay, that's where I'm going to end up cutting it or tearing it. And when I go to tape it or glue it, I'm actually going to tape both edges, right? So that both sides here get glue on it or get adhesive. And the reason being is I don't want this inside to catch and I don't want that going flying out. So that I'm definitely going to go as close to the edge as I can. And this is already laying on there. So if you're using glue, be careful or put a piece of paper behind this so that you don't get adhesive on your book. And I do it right on the book to ensure that there's some mass underneath. I'm going to line up my cut edges here and here. And then, because I know this side is straight, and I can put this down and either cut that or I'll tear that. But I'm only going to take, well, I'll take off a lot more actually, just so I can show what that might look like. So it's all one even piece. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, good. And again, if you do end up making one side bigger than the other, just remember which side that goes on. Probably the spine side. Good. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope you have a great time making your books. Please join us next month. We meet on the third Tuesday of the month. We're going to have a community call where we're going to be working together. So bring whatever projects you're working on. If you have questions about these books, I'll have them nearby. I will have developed a few more, I'm sure. And then if you want to ask other people that are either in your field, if you're a calligrapher, or if you want to ask other visual practitioners questions, we're going to have some breakouts and some games and ways for us to really build community and learn from one another. So until then, enjoy the prompts and we'll see you next month. Take care, everyone.